You have known how love stories end before the first chapter was written. You have sat across from someone on a first date, felt the warmth of connection, watched their smile reach their eyes, and simultaneously seen the precise wound that would eventually break you both apart. This is not pessimism. This is not self-sabotage. This is the inheritance of those who were born to see, and no one ever taught you what to do with sight this clear. Welcome to power and myth. There is a reason the ancient world placed oracles at the center of its most important decisions. There is a reason kings travelled for months to hear what the seer could perceive. And there is a reason those same seers were often isolated, often misunderstood, often dismissed as mad by those who could not bear what they revealed. The oracle's gift has never been comfortable. It has only ever been true. What you carry into every relationship you enter is not a personality quirk or an anxious tendency to overthink. It is an archetypal inheritance that predates psychology itself. In the INFJ Archetypes framework, we explore here at Power and Myth, we call this the Seer, the one who perceives what others cannot, the one who carries Cassandra's ancient curse, to know and not be believed. You are not imagining the patterns you perceive. You are seeing them, and the loneliness of seeing what others cannot is perhaps the defining wound of the INFJ in love. Consider what actually happens when you meet someone who interests you. The surface interaction proceeds normally. There is conversation, there is laughter, there is the ordinary electricity of two people discovering each other, but beneath this, running parallel to the visible exchange, something else is occurring. You are reading. Not consciously, not deliberately, but with a perceptual apparatus that operates whether you wish it to or not. You are absorbing micro-expressions, noting the slight hesitation before certain topics, registering the way their energy shifts when they speak about their past. You are constructing, without trying, a map of who this person is beneath who they present themselves to be, and within that map you are already seeing the territory that will become difficult. You notice the defended places. You sense the wounds they have not yet healed. You perceive the patterns they will repeat because they do not yet know they are repeating them. By the end of a single evening, you often know more about someone's emotional architecture than their closest friends have learned in years. This is not arrogance. It is not assumption. It is the seer's burden dressed in modern clothing. You simply perceive what is there. The cruelty of this gift is its timing. You see endings at beginnings. You perceive the fatal flaw in the foundation whilst everyone else is admiring the view from the penthouse. And you are left with an impossible choice that has followed oracles throughout human history. Do you speak what you see? Do you warn? Do you try to explain to someone you have just met that you can already sense how this will eventually hurt? Of course you do not. How could you? So you learn to carry your knowing in silence. You learn to participate in the early stages of love whilst holding a private awareness that feels almost like betrayal. You are present and absent simultaneously, connected and watchful, falling and observing yourself fall. This divided consciousness is exhausting in ways that those who do not share it cannot understand. You are never simply in a relationship. You are in a relationship, whilst also monitoring it, predicting it, bracing for what you have already intuited is coming. The present moment is contaminated by your awareness of the future. And still, despite everything you see, you love anyway. This is perhaps the most remarkable thing about the INFJ in love. Sight does not prevent attachment. It only makes attachment more complicated, more layered, more shadowed by the weight of what you carry alone. The mythological Cassandra was given the gift of prophecy and the curse of never being believed. When she warned the Trojans about the wooden horse, they dismissed her as hysterical. When she foretold destruction, they looked away. This is not merely a story, it is a precise description of what happens when an INFJ tries to voice their perceptions in relationships. You have had the experience. You have sensed something wrong beneath the surface of a friend's new partner. You have perceived the manipulation, the subtle control, the way energy in the room shifts when that person enters. And when you tried, carefully, gently, to share what you noticed, you were met with defensiveness, with dismissal, with the suggestion that perhaps you were projecting or jealous or simply unable to be happy for others. The Cassandra wound runs deep in the INFJ psyche. It teaches you over time to stop speaking what you see, not because your sight becomes less clear, but because the cost of sharing it becomes too high. You learn that people do not want to know what you know. They want to discover it for themselves, even when that discovery will be painful, even when you could have saved them months or years of suffering. And so you watch. You hold your tongue. You let people walk toward the very cliffs you mapped the moment you met them. This silence is not cowardice. It is the exhausted wisdom of someone who has learned that truth, when unwanted, becomes indistinguishable from cruelty. But here is what rarely gets spoken about: the Seer archetype, the shadow that lives inside the gift itself. Your sight, however accurate, is not neutral. It shapes what it perceives. When you enter a relationship already sensing its eventual fracture, you are not merely observing. You are participating in a dynamic that your very awareness influences, the defended places you noticed in another person. Did you approach them with curiosity, or did you approach them already knowing they would be a problem? The patterns you predicted. Did you give the relationship space to surprise you, or did you unconsciously create the conditions for your predictions to prove correct? This is the shadow work of the seer in love. Perception and projection are closer neighbours than we wish to admit. The wound you sensed in another may be real. It may also be a mirror of the wound you carry within yourself. Your sight shows you what is there. It also shows you what you expect to find, what you are primed to notice, and what confirms the narrative you have already written. The oracle who cannot distinguish between genuine perception and unconscious expectation is trapped in a hall of mirrors, forever seeing, but never certain whether the reflection is the other person or themselves. This is not an argument against your gift. Your perceptions are real. Your pattern recognition is genuine. But wisdom lies in holding your sight with humility, recognizing that even the clearest vision is filtered through the lens of your own experience. The INFJ who learns this becomes something more than a seer. They become a witness who can perceive without predetermining, who can notice without knowing, who can remain open to being wrong about what they see. There is another shadow here, one that strikes at the heart of the oracle's loneliness. You can see others with startling clarity. You can perceive their patterns, wounds, potential, and blind spots. But when you turn that same sight inward, when you try to perceive yourself in love, the oracle becomes strangely blind. This is where the seer archetype intersects with another pattern we explore at Power and Myth, the wounded healer. Chiron, in Greek mythology, was the centaur who could heal any wound except his own. He taught medicine to heroes, saved countless lives, and carried an injury that would never heal. This is not merely a story, it is a precise description of how many INFJs experience their own insight in relationships. You have given friends advice about their relationships that proved accurate. You have seen what they could not see about their partners, their patterns, their needs. And yet when it comes to your own heart, you are as lost as anyone. Perhaps more lost, because you expected your gift to guide you, and found instead that it abandoned you precisely when you needed it most. This is not a failure of your perception. It is a structural feature of the archetype itself. The oracle's sight is oriented outward. It perceives the other, the collective, the patterns moving through the world beyond the self. Turning that perception inward requires a different kind of seeing, one that the archetype does not naturally provide. You can spend years understanding others whilst remaining a mystery to yourself, and in love this creates a particular kind of pain. You enter relationships knowing exactly what the other person needs, exactly how to reach them, exactly what will heal them. But you do not know what you need. You do not know how to be reached. You do not know what will heal you. The oracle gives and gives from their infinite sight and receives little in return, not because they are unloved, but because they do not know how to show others where to find them. Jung understood that every gift casts a shadow of equal depth. The greater the light, the darker the places it cannot reach. For the INFJ in love, the shadow of sight is this profound difficulty with being seen. You have spent your life perceiving others. You have become an expert at reading, understanding, and knowing. But being on the other side of that exchange, being the one who is read, who is understood, who is known, this terrifies you. Not because you fear being seen as flawed. You already know you are flawed. What terrifies you is being seen as you actually are, without the mediation of your insight, without the protection of your understanding, without the distance that perception provides. To be loved as the oracle is to be loved for your gift. To be loved as a human being is to be loved in your blindness, your confusion, your places of not knowing. And that requires a vulnerability. The Seer archetype resists with everything it has. Here is the heart of the matter. You long to be understood with the same depth you bring to understanding others. You ache for someone who can perceive you the way you perceive them. But when that perception comes, when someone actually sees past your insight into your uncertainty, past your wisdom into your wounds, you feel exposed in ways that are nearly unbearable. The oracle who is truly seen loses their defining protection. They become merely human. And merely human is precisely what you have spent your life trying to transcend, not from arrogance, but from the desperate hope that if you understood enough, perceived enough, knew enough, you might finally be safe from the wounds that vision cannot prevent. What does it mean, then, to love as the oracle? What does it mean to carry sight this clear into the impossible vulnerability of genuine connection? It does not mean abandoning your perception. Your sight is real. Your patterns are accurate more often than not. The things you sense about others are worth trusting, even when trusting them is painful, even when you wish you could unsee what you have seen. But it means holding that sight with open hands, rather than clenched fists. It means allowing for the possibility that people can change, that patterns can shift, that the ending you perceived at the beginning was one possible future among many. The oracle's prophecies in ancient myth were never false, but they were often misunderstood, even by the oracle itself. The future is not fixed. It is a probability field shaped by countless choices, and your perception captures the most likely trajectory, not the only possible one. When you can hold your sight this way, something remarkable becomes possible. You can perceive without predetermining. You can notice the defended places in others and choose curiosity rather than preemptive protection. You can sense the patterns that will become difficult and bring them into conversation rather than carrying them in silence until resentment calcifies into distance. The oracle who speaks becomes something different from the oracle who watches. They become partners rather than prophets. They offer their perception as information, not as fate. This is the mature expression of the archetype. Not sight abandoned, but sight shared. Not knowing suppressed, but knowing offered with the humility that admits it might be incomplete. And there is this. The loneliness of the oracle is real, but it is not inevitable. Somewhere there is another seer, someone who carries the same exhausting gift, who knows the same burden of perception, who has watched others walk toward cliffs they mapped months ago. Someone who will perceive you with the same depth you bring to perceiving others and who will understand why. That is both terrifying and necessary. The oracle's true match is not someone who cannot see them. It is someone who sees them completely and stays anyway. Someone who perceives their shadows and does not flinch. Someone who understands that to love a seer is to accept that they will always know more than they say, will always perceive more than they share, will always be watching even as they are present. This kind of love is rare. It requires two people willing to be seen in their entirety, with nowhere to hide, no gift to protect them, no insight to keep them safe. But when it happens, When two seers find each other and choose the terrible vulnerability of mutual perception, something ancient is fulfilled. The oracle is no longer alone with their knowing. The gift becomes shared rather than isolating. And the sight that once felt like a curse becomes, finally, a bridge. If you recognized yourself in the seer today, I want to know, when did you first realize you could see how relationships would unfold before they did? Tell me in the comments. Your experience names what others are still carrying in silence. And if you want to keep exploring these ancient patterns that shape how INFJs love, lose, and find their way back to themselves, subscribe. You are part of something here at Power and Myth, a gathering of those who have always known they were living inside a story. Until next time, find your power, know your myth.